2020 St. Clair Shores Sports Induction Ceremony for the Hall of Fame. And our first recipient from Lakeshore, we're represented all around our high schools here, and his name is Greg Esler. And he started his coaching career in the CYO at St. Anne's, later at the JV at De La Salle. Greg Esler came to Lakeshore in the 87-88 program year to coach boys varsity program. It's been struggling for decades. Coach Esler's arrival had an immediate impact. In the 88-89 season, that team finished with a winning record of 17-6 and a state district championship, the first boys championship since '78. So right away, he paid dividends. For the next 5 seasons, Coach Esler guided the varsity program to a record of 104 wins and just 20 losses. That's a winning percentage of 84%. Pretty good. His last 2 seasons at Lakeshore were his crescendo. Coach Esler's 92-93 team compiled a record of 26-1 with a state semifinal appearance, and his 93-94 team won a state championship and finished an unbeaten, perfect 28-0 season. Coach Esler was named the Class B Coach of the Year in '93 and '94 and put a record up of 54-1, which remains the second greatest run in Michigan boys high school basketball history. Phenomenal. In 1995, with an opportunity to coach his sons, Doug and Robert, Greg returned to coach for Warren De La Salle. And in 26 years, and still currently right now leading the Pilots, they have a record of 421 wins and just 196 losses. That's 68% winning percentage. Coach Esler and his Pilot team have collected 11 Central Division titles, 10 district championships, 25 all-time, by the way, 4 regional championships, and 2 Final Four appearances in '07 and '18. Coach Esler was inducted in 2012 into the Basketball Coaches of Michigan Hall of Fame. His record, over 786 games, was 554 wins, just 232 losses. That's a winning percentage of 71%. Greg Esler has established himself as an elite coach in Macomb County history, one of the best coaches ever here in Michigan, Mr. Coach himself, Greg Esler.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Before I get started, it's been a year since I've come back to this building, and I already found out that Mayor Kipwalby likes Henry Bowman a lot better than me. 23 years I tried to get an intern and didn't get one, and Henry here 1 year he gets an intern, so I don't know. But I'd like to thank the Parks and Recreation Department and the Hall of Fame Committee for putting on this great event. I'd like to congratulate the other Hall of Fame inductees. I'm here this afternoon because of my family and friends who supported me and loved me through the years. My wife, Renee, who is an incredible wife and supporter, and my best friend, could not be here today. She's suffering food poisoning. My parents, Bob and Loretta Esler, you couldn't ask for better parents. I just want to tell you a quick story. So my mother called me this morning and said, Greg, how's Renee feeling? And I go, she's not feeling good, Ma. She has food poisoning. So right away she says, well, your dad and I aren't coming to this event. I'm not going to get food poisoning. I go, Ma, you can't get food poisoning. She goes, well, we're not going to come this year. She says, but next year we will. So for the inductees next year, Bob and Loretta Esler are going to be there. But my dad did come here today, and my dad, I want to thank him. Been a great inspiration. Taught me what a work ethic is. 41 years he worked for the Free Press. He was sick for 5 days in 41 years. I couldn't have had better parents. Father Rhonda Hunt, a great friend and an iconic figure at St. Margaret's Parish, as well as the Metro Detroit area. Father, I want to thank you for everything you've done for me. Brother Bob Carnegie from De La Salle Collegiate, who is celebrating his 70th year as a Christian brother this year. I'd like to have brother stand up. 70 years as a Christian brother. Robert Deary, who is the youngster in the group, he's only been a brother for 58 years, but somebody I really look up to, Brother Robert Deary. And also a loyal and great friend of mine, Mr. Larry Boyd. I've been blessed to work with three great coaches, first Hall of Famer Dave Grauzer, Catholic Hall of Famer Tom Mell, and soon-to-be Hall of Fame coach Jeff Becker. I'd like to share this quick story with you about my coaches. None of them ever said a word or gave me a suggestion when the games were close. When we were winning by 20 or 25 points, all kinds of ideas and suggestions flowed. We were at Callahan Hall playing in the semifinals of the Catholic League Championship versus Orchard Lake St. Mary's for the third straight year. The 2 years prior, we eliminated them both in heated contests. We knew they were going to be ready to play. So the game started out 8-0, Orchard Lake St. Mary's. I called a timeout. I looked at my coaches, nothing said. 2 minutes later, I called another timeout. Score, Orchard Lake St. Mary's 18, De La Salle 2. I looked at Grauzer and said, do you have any ideas? Without hesitation, Grauzer barked back, let me get Joe, our bus driver, and tell him to bring the bus up in front of this gym. This game is over. In 1987, I was fortunate Mr. George Krillin hired me as a 32-year-old coach that had no varsity experience. And what a wonderful friend he was, and what a great opportunity for a young coach. In 1994, it was a magical year. We went on and won the first state championship in Macomb history. There's only been one other in the years at Macomb. As Tom alluded to, the team went 54-1, which I'm very, very proud of. One of the things, I have some players here tonight, and I'd like to acknowledge them. First, Andrew and Jeff Grauzer. I have Jeff Batu, probably the greatest athlete I ever coached. I have Luke Fromm, a member of the 2018 Hall of Fame. And I also, really great surprise, Mike Sullivan, one of my players from St. Anne's in 1983 is here from Texas. So I want to thank all them guys for showing up today. After the 94 season, I went over to De La Salle, and you heard I went over for my son Robert. And we've had success, but I found out that my success is surrounding myself with great people and great players. I'd also like to thank Mark Wollweber, the city manager of St. Clair Shores, for giving me the opportunity to work with the residents in this fine city as recreation director for 23 years. I've met some fantastic people, and many of you are still friends. And lastly, I'd like you to pray for De La Salle, our students, our faculty and alumni, and also for our basketball team that begins our districts on Wednesday. We never pray to God that we win a game. We just ask Him that we score more points than the other team. Thank you. Thank you.
That's Coach Greg Esler, everybody. Another round of applause. He was mentioning one of his best players, Jeff Patu. It's a friend of mine. I bowl with him. Now I got to live with him now after hearing the applause from his coach. So thanks a lot, Coach. We appreciate it. Our next recipient is not here with us today, but his family sure is. And he's a legend from South Lake. Donald C. Frederick, a legend and a legacy, is the tribute displayed outside the South Lake High School Gymnasium for Donald Frederick, along with his retired number 3 baseball jersey. Don attended South Lake High School, was very successful in sports, 4 varsity letters for baseball, 3 in basketball, and 2 in football. Upon graduation, Don was drafted by the Boston Red Sox. The Boston Red Sox. He was a hell of a center fielder. I talked to his brother Ron. He said he could throw out a guy at home straight up from center field. without bouncing the ball. That's pretty damn good. And, well, he had a choice. The Red Sox took him. He chose another route. He went and pursued his education at Eastern Michigan University, where he played baseball. And he played under one of the best in the business, Ron Oestreich, who was a Michigan Sports Hall of Famer himself. A highlight of Don's collegiate career was winning the championship game of the 1970 NAIA College World Series. In '71, he returned to Southlake as a teacher, baseball, softball, and basketball coach. And of course, coached at the high school level and coached travel softball and the whole 9 yards. He did it all. He was highly respected as an athletic director throughout Macomb County, recognized for 20 years of service as an athletic director by the MIAAA. Throughout his career, Don touched the lives of thousands of students, parents, and colleagues, all calling him Mr. Frederick. He is dearly missed and would be so proud and humbled to be receiving this honor today. The Donald C. Frederick Memorial Scholarship Fund, established in 2005, and continues to be awarded annually for a deserving athlete at each of the 3 St. Clair Shores high schools, all proudly, of course. Here representing Donald C. Frederick, not all, his mom is here as well, but how about our good friend, our councilman, and his brother, Ron Frederick, on behalf of Donald C. Frederick. You couldn't coax anyone, Ron? Come up here.
They're coming. I think the sun is. Kyle, you coming up here? Here it comes. All right.
Congrats.
Thanks, Tom. Congrats. Thanks, man. Great honor. Thank you. So this is Don's son, Kyle, and many say he looks just like him, so you do look just like him. Holy cow. So I talked to Henry earlier today, and I said, do we have to get up and say anything? He goes, oh, no, no. Henry, it is budget time, so I'm just saying. And I want to congratulate Greg Esler, who I've had the, distinguished to work with him for a long time through the city. Did a great job. Congratulations, Greg. Nicely done. That thing that Maz just told us about Don being able to throw a ball from center field as a strike right to home plate and get somebody out. And every game somebody did test him, right? Because we heard the stories, but they would test him. Well, I can tell you we were behind the Southlake Junior High, which is not there anymore. And somebody was testing him. That particular time, he didn't get the guy out because he threw it over the backstop into the parking lot. So, and of course, that allowed me to rib him for a long time. So anyway, they did win that game. But Kyle, you want to say something?
You know, it's been a long time since my dad's passed, and you know he's meant a lot to a lot of people throughout the St. Clair Shores area, and it means a lot to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. His passion was sports, education, and teaching the kids coming up. So thank you from my family to everybody here, and thanks for putting him in the Hall of Fame.
All right. Just real quickly, if I can have Don's family stand up. His wife Donna is here. Some people that he worked with are here as well. That's his wife Donna. And Lindsay, his daughter. All right. I can tell you, Lindsay was drafted, was sort of drafted for Oakland, both university and played. She was a fast pitch softball player and one of the best in the business. And I can tell you why, because Don started with her at age 2 at our cottage. We're out there in the boat, and she's on shore going, I want to be in the boat, but he's making her pitch, right? All right. And then I just want to introduce my mother, Evelyn Frederick, who 95, just turned 95. And you know, the woman behind the men. So she did a great job. And then, of course, you know, I've got my family over there at that table as well. And Brent's pointing at, who you pointing? Oh, Nicole. Nicole's family in the back. That's Don's stepdaughter back there with her kids. So, again, thanks a lot for this, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's Ron Frederick for his brother Donald and the entire Frederick family. Congratulations. I can't wait till one day I'm inducted to this Hall of Fame. You know, I coached a couple of my girls' 8U softball teams at Lac St. Clair. We won a couple of championships. I'm waiting my turn though. But there's nothing like watching those girls grow and seeing them see what they become. And coaches, obviously, they might go into management, these guys, because they just know how to manage people. They know what people like. And coaches, they're our mentors. We look up to them. And to have a great coach, I'm 58, and I still talk about my high school coaches and even my Pee-wee coach. I still remember Coach Joe and, you know, calling me Chubby. Hey, run to the wall there, Chubby, and all that kind of stuff. Really pumped me up, you know? Anyway, it's been great. Our next recipient, I got a chance to talk to him in the lobby. It's always great when you talk to a great athlete. And Dave Grauzer from Lakeshore High School is one of those athletes. He was an accomplished basketball player. When you see him, you'll know why. He's a big guy. He had a varsity playing record at Lakeshore of 39-10. He was able to help his team earn the titles of bi-county champions in '73, district champions also in '73, '74. They played in the finals. He was also recognized as the Macomb County Player of the Year back in 1974. He started his basketball career in college at University of Detroit Mercy, playing for the legendary coach, mostly voice, Dick Vitale. Dickie V, who knows Dickie V? I think Dickie V might have been a little too loud for Dave because he only stayed 1 year with Dick Vitale, and he took his talents to Central Michigan, where he became a versatile guard for the CMU Chippewas in the 1970s. He played in a pair of MAC championships in '76-77 and '78-79. They reached the NCAA and NIT tournaments, respectively. He also played against a couple of guys you might know, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Not too bad. The Chippewas finished 53-29 in his stead there. He still holds the school record today for steals in a season of 63, assists of 196, and second in career free throws, 829 from the free throw line. So if you're going to foul a guy, Dave was not the guy to foul. He was an All-MAC first team in '79. He was their team captain. And how about this? He was drafted in the 10th round by your Detroit Pistons, who probably could use him today. Dave continued on after his basketball player. He coached for a variety of different teams. He coached over 3 decades, 6 years at St. Margaret's, 4 at Lakeshore, 17 at De La Salle, 4 at Grosse Pointe South, and 3 years at Traverse City West, where he resides now, and still, as a retired man, is still helping coach there. Dave Grauzer is considered one of the best basketball players in St. Clair Shore's history. And here he is, Dave Grauzer, everyone.
Thank you, appreciate it. Dave, congratulations. Thank you, Mayor. Well done.
Thank you very much. First, let me acknowledge my family here with me today. I have my wife, the reason I transferred to Central Michigan, where we met. Stand up, honey, please. And then my 2 sons, Jeff and Andrew. A friend of mine, an arch rival in high school, Kevin Conti, went to Lakeview High School. I played at Lakeshore, obviously. Had the gall to nominate me for this. So I wish Kevin couldn't be here today, but if he gets an opportunity to see this, God bless him. One quick story about Kevin that he never lets me forget, and every Christmas I get the Conti newsletter, and in it is the stat sheet from our final game. That we played in '74 in league. He took the charge on me, my 5th foul. We lost the game. He was the hero. We lost first place in the conference that night, and I get that stat sheet every Christmas. So thanks, Kevin, for nominating. I appreciate you. Thank you, Mayor Wabi, the selection committee, Mr. Bowman, and the Park and Rec staff. Thank you, Emma Corte, for all the efforts surrounding this event. This event once again demonstrates another reason why St. Clair Shores is such a special city. I am honored and humbled to be considered on this occasion as an inductee to St. Clair Shores Hall of Fame. Also, congratulations go out to Greg, Cynthia, the 1980 Pony All-Star team, with a couple guys I coached in high school, and the family and friends of Don Frederick. That's quite an accomplishment. It is truly a privilege to share this special moment with you today. Your resumes speak volumes of the contributions you have made to sports and especially to the city of St. Clair Shores. To me, the Shores, which we call, I'm a Shores guy, is a special. My view is that we have a community built upon a series of smaller communities. I grew up in Tangletown. That's just north of 13 Mile Road. Named for the difficulty of navigating the streets of the subdivision. I attended St. Margaret's, Kennedy Middle School, Lakeshore High School. Played basketball all three with special memories at each stop. Pete and L. Abraham at St. Margaret's. Coach Nash, Mr. Clair Garlinski at Kennedy Middle School, George Carellin, former AD, who's a Hall of Fame member here, and Herb Rumler, my coach at Lakeshore. Then after that, after college, how do you get the opportunity to come back and coach at all three venues? To me, that's special. You make lifelong friends in coaching. To name a few, Jim Lewis, John Bartolomeo, Norm Perino, Steve Kabazinski, Jimmy Parinello. Those are my St. Margaret's family. At Lakeshore, Greg Esler and Tommy Mell. Spent 18 years with those two, albeit the majority at De La Salle, but boy did we have our moments. And as I was preparing the speech, a flood of memories overwhelmed me. And I just can't believe Greg stole some of my thunder, because that's the same story I'm going to tell, but a few different twists on it, okay? Let me share one moment with you. Tommy and I would sit next to each other on the bench during the game. Greg, in his typical demeanor, paces up and down the bench with the Esler scowl. I don't know if you've ever seen him, but Greg's pretty intense. If you worked with him or if you coached with him, he's got the scowl on all the time. High intensity. Tommy and I would throw out suggestions every 15 seconds or so, and in typical Esler fashion, sort of like how he mentioned, he would continue to ignore us. This lasted approximately 18 years. However, on the one occasion that Greg did mention, we were playing Orchard Lake St. Mary's in the quarterfinals, and we had a good team. They had a great team. And early on, it was 24-6, sort of like Greg indicated. And warming up the bus, those thoughts were going through my head. And as Greg motors down to the end of the bench by Tommy and asks, with the scowl in place, well, you two geniuses have any suggestions? Tommy looks up and says, save your timeouts, let's get out of here early. We laughed at that one on the bench, and we laughed after the game, and there's just a flood of memories with those two guys. But that pretty much sums up my basketball career. It was having fun, but it was through passion, and it was through emotion. I believe that is something I share with the others being honored here tonight, and it all starts here in St. Clair Shores. How fortunate I was how fortunate I was to grow up and play in the 60s and the 70s. Little League baseball, through Colt baseball, skating Friday nights at Gordie Howe Hockey Land, going to any hockey game, Lakeshore versus Lakeview or versus South Lake, any basketball game, Lakeview or South Lake against Lakeshore. The rivalries were tremendous. We always showed up, each school to protect what we considered our turf. But years later, friendships would emerge from those rivalries. However, sometimes those rivalries continued onto the softball diamonds at Kite Monroe. And the stories, memories would continue to grow and laughter shared. I find it remarkable that the farther one is removed from the actual event, the better the story becomes. And arguments that ensue can make you laugh harder than any late night TV show. Which brings me to the city I love. What other city provides the recreational activities and community events better than the Shores? The golf course, Memorial Park, Kite Monroe, Mark Wells Arena, Memorial Day Parade, the 4th of July fireworks, the Nautical Mile, and of course, I can't leave out the Boatworks, AKA Second Place Lounge. Now I'm dating myself. I'm so grateful that my parents had the foresight to move to St. Clair Shores, to recognize and help build St. Margaret's into a beautiful parish, encouraged me through Kennedy and Lakeshore schools, and helped me navigate the streets of Tangletown. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'll forever be a Shores guy. Thank you.
Dave Grauzer, everyone. By the way, when Dave played at U of D for Dickie V, he got drafted. He basically ran away from Dickie V, went to Central Michigan, and went to the Pistons. And guess who became the head coach of the Pistons? Yes, Dick Vitale. Followed Dave over. I guess you were meant for each other, Dave. Congratulations again. Our next recipient is someone I actually know. I know you all now, but I actually knew this woman. And I looked up to her, actually, even though we're basically the same age. She's younger than me. I'm sorry, Cindy. She was a student athlete attending Lakeview High. You gotta love St. Clair Shores. As little as we are, as big as we are, we have 3 high schools. I mean, what place could say you have 3 high schools in such a not too big of a town? It's great. She earned 8 varsity letters, tennis, volleyball, and softball in her 3 years. And she was a recipient of the Scott Lambert Memorial Scholarship for Student Athlete in 1980. She attended Macomb Community College, Wayne State, on a tennis scholarship. She played doubles at Macomb and singles at WSU. And along the way, Cindy worked as a softball umpire for the city of St. Clair Shores and an umpire for neighborhood programs. Prior to her graduation from Wayne State, she began as an editorial assistant for the Detroit News Sports Department. So a woman in the sports department. Pretty good, at least back then. Now it's commonplace. In 1987, she became the first female beat writer for the Detroit Red Wings. That is something. And she embarked on her career as a Red Wing reporter for the News, culminating in covering the team's back-to-back Stanley Cup championships in 97 and 98. I was working on the radio side, she was on the print side, and no one really listens to me. They read her, and the players respected the hell out of her. I know that. She also worked as the Detroit-based hockey news reporter and appeared on several local and national television programs as their NHL expert. And most recently, she's an author now. She's written a book about her professional life called Power Play, My Life Inside the Red Wings Locker Room. It's a must-read. And here she is to accept her award, going into the St. Clair Shore Sports Hall of Fame, Miss Cynthia Lambert.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you very much to the Parks and Rec Department and the committee, and congratulations to all the other recipients. I was joking with my family before this. You know, I'm a writer, I'm not a speaker, and I'm very nervous up here. And all I could think of this morning was the Office episode where Dwight Schrute won Salesman of the Year, and he kept pounding on the podium. And my son dared me to do it, but I'm not going to do that. But I would like to thank my family for being here. And if you guys could stand, I'm going to put you on the spot now. So I have my 3 brothers, Jerry, John, and Steve, my sister-in-law, Lori. You guys aren't standing. My nephew, Kevin, my nephew, Brett, my niece, Kirsten, my nephew Brett's wife, my niece Danielle, her fiance John, and my son Quinn, who came in from Chicago for the, well, not for this, he's on spring break. And then my good friend from high school, Dave Rebello. You know, with sports are filled with cliches, right? And we all hear them, and we don't pay attention to them, but they became cliches for a reason. It's because they're true. And for me, growing up on the east side of Detroit until we moved to St. Clair Shores when I was 13, I started playing sports when I was 7. And what I realized now is right from the beginning, it taught me self-worth. And it's for every athlete. I don't care if you're a girl or a boy, man or woman, it doesn't matter. It teaches you things about persevering when you don't feel like persevering, when it's pouring rain and you have to stand out there in the field because they're not calling the game yet, or freezing on the tennis court because you're playing in October and you put your hand on the racket and there was a bumblebee on it and you got stung by a bumblebee and you still had to keep playing. And it also taught you, hopefully, how to be a humble winner and to share and to be a teammate and to lead. And yeah, I talked about how my career in sports started when I was 7. I went to my parents and said I wanted to play softball. Well, we grew up, my dad was a Detroit cop, my mom was a homemaker, and we had 4 kids and a dog. So there wasn't a lot of extra money, and I didn't have a baseball mitt. So I don't know if it was Jerry, John, or Steve, or a grouping of them with their friends. They went, as we called, alley picking. And they went into the alleys behind the houses in Detroit, and they found a mitt for me so I could play baseball or softball. And it's a great story of how much they loved me. But unfortunately, it was a mitt for a right-hander, and I'm left-handed. So my first year of softball, I spent standing out in right field where no little girl would ever hit the ball because I couldn't throw with my right hand. But the next year, I told my mom and dad I really want to play softball, so then I was able to go to Federal's department store and get my sky blue baseball mitt. And from that point on, I played whatever sports I could in Detroit. When we moved to St. Clair Shores in 1975, my world opened up to me. I found out I could do the training, and I became an umpire. In junior high, at Chippewa Junior High then, I played basketball and softball. When I went to Lakeview, I started playing tennis right before I started at Lakeview, and I was on those courts at Civic Arena with my friend Kim Gabriel. We must have played 5 or 6 hours a day to learn how to play tennis. Then I made the tennis team, and I played tennis the whole time, and as he said, I ended up getting a scholarship at Macomb and then Wayne State. But I know that it wasn't just a pastime for me. All the time, I was learning things about myself and about getting along with people and learning the vernacular of sports, and I just loved them. I loved sports. And so it was natural for me to go into journalism and want to cover sports. I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. So when I got the, I want to say audition, my son's an actor, so he always talks about auditions. But when I had the opportunity to interview at the Detroit News, I went in not wanting the job. And after an hour and a half of interviewing, I was told I got the job. I went home, told my mom I didn't want to work there. She said, you got to give it 3 weeks. If after 3 weeks you don't want the job, then you can quit. Well, she was right. After 3 weeks, I started understanding where a pathway could lead. And I'm so glad I stayed there. I ended up doing so many wonderful things and having so many wonderful experiences. I went skydiving for a first-person story. That's how desperate I was to get in print. I covered professional wrestling, which was very interesting because I would get the scoop the Friday before it aired, and I would make the predictions and I would be 100% right. But I was able to meet so many different athletes, Wayne Gretzky and Jack Nicklaus and Gordie Howe and, of course, Steve Yzerman, the Russian Five, Scotty Bowman, not one of my favorites, but he's, great. But all along the way, I had the confidence to do this job because I knew I could. I had all these experiences behind me, and I knew how to talk to athletes because I had been talking to athletes my whole life. I knew what it was like to suffer an injury. I had a broken nose at one point. I broke every finger here, sprained both ankles, concussion. I know what it's like to try and recover from an injury. What I'm trying to say is all those sports experiences helped me. And I would not have had them had it not been for St. Clair Shores Parks and Rec and all the programs at the high school, at the junior high, and all the support that the community gives sports. You never know where sports will take someone, so please continue to support them, and please, Parks and Rec, keep doing those programs, because you don't know what it's going to produce. So thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, she doesn't like to talk. Sure. What a line that was, Cynthia. Great job. Cynthia Lambert, everyone. Our last recipient of the afternoon is a huge recipient. Lots of people involved in this one. How many people were actually alive in 1980 here? Raise your hand. All right. This is about the 1980 Pony All-Star team from St. Clair Shores. Comprised of 15 of the best 13 and 14-year-old baseball players in the city. And that was one of the best ones here in St. Clair Shores history. This team earned the titles of district, state, division, and zone champions throughout their 1980 season, as well as the opportunity to play in the Pony World Series. This team started the 1980 St. Clair Shores pony season with a 3-game winning streak, captured the district championships right over at Kite Monroe. The following weekend, they won the state title in Wayne, beating Bay City in a Sunday doubleheader after coming through the loser's bracket. That means if you lose a game early, they put you in a different bracket and you have to win an extra game to keep on going. And they did that. They wound up traveling to Paducah, Kentucky, winning the East Division Championship with a 3-game sweep. In the final game of the championship, the opposing pitcher from Paducah throws a no-hitter at them, but he didn't win. This pitching gem was not good enough to stop these resilient Shores boys. They proceeded to win the zone tournament in Morton, Illinois. Oh, how did they win that game? I forgot to tell you. They won on a walk, a steal, a bunt, and a ground out to win 1-0, and they didn't get a hit in the game. Now they go to the zone tournament in Morton, Illinois. Again, coming through the loser's bracket. They beat Oak Park, Illinois in a doubleheader and clinched the trip to the Pony World Series in Davenport, Iowa. They were ranked 3rd in the nation, 7th in the world. The 1980 St. Clair Shores Pony All-Stars certainly left their mark on St. Clair Shores athletic history. The team was managed by longtime St. Clair Shores coach, you heard his name before, Jim Lewis. His assistant coaches were Dennis Skirby. The business manager was Gus Constantino. By the way, Jim Lewis himself, a 2018 inductee into the St. Clair Shores Hall of Fame. This time he goes in with his 1980 Pony All-Star team. The St. Clair champs, the St. Clair Shores champions, led by Jim Lewis, the Pony All-Star team.
Congratulations, Jim. Job well done.
Thank you so much. I want to thank Henry and Kip and Sean Nicholson, Hall of Fame Committee. It's such an honor. I had put the All-Star team up originally when they started the Hall of Fame, and we went through 3 years and it expired, and I said, we're going to get in the Hall of Fame or I'm going to die trying. This team meant so much to me. So right now, I do things a little out of the ordinary. I always have as a coach. And in life, I want the whole team to come up here. Let's go, guys. Up. It's the last thing I'm going to ask you to do is your coach. We're fortunate to have 13 of our 15 players up here with me. Johnny Constantino lives in Hawaii. He wasn't able to make it. I don't think, Chris Thomas thought he might be able to, but I don't think he was able to make it. So 13 out of 15, but I want to start with one thing. Dennis Skirby was my coach, my right-hand guy. Okay, we worked well together. And Dennis, died about 8 years ago. He's not able, to make it, obviously, but he's here in spirit. I know he is. And if it wasn't for Dennis, we wouldn't be standing on this podium here today. So give him a big hand. One of the good things about going last is I can go over my time. Right, guys? Isn't that right? Okay. So I got a couple of stories, and then I have some prepared remarks. We had, I can't remember exactly where it was. One of these guys would remember, but we had a little incident in a hotel, and I can't remember exactly where it was. But the hotel manager came to me and he said, "Look, we've had some complaints on a couple of the rooms here. The guys are getting rowdy." And before he could even stop, I said, "Wait a minute, I'm going to take care of it. Don't worry." Okay. He said, "Okay, coach." So I knew where most of the noise was coming from, and I went to the room next door to that room. I knocked on the door. The lady comes to the door, and I said, "Ma'am," took out my wallet. I said, "Ma'am, I'm hotel security. I understand that you have a complaint of some of the players that are staying here." And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Ma'am, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it." And she was so appreciative. And obviously I did take care of it. So we exchanged. That story kind of grew over 40 years. We talked about it yesterday. So these are my prepared remarks, and most of the time when I speak, I don't have prepared remarks, but there were so many things that happened with this team in a 5-week period. I didn't want to leave anything out. And we had memories that it's too hard to talk about. For the members of the 1980 Pony All-Star team, the summer of 1980 was unforgettable. Not simply because the team made it to the Pony League World Series in Davenport, Iowa, but more importantly for the lessons that we all learned during our 5 weeks together in July and August of that year. The entire team battled against each other on different teams in a 15-game league schedule. And then in 2 short weeks, we had to assemble an all-star team that would represent St. Clair Shores in the Pony District at Kite Monroe. I wonder how many of our players would have signed on to play if they knew the adversity that they would face over the next 5 weeks together. After winning our district tournament in St. Clair Shores at Kite Monroe with a 3-game sweep, the road got bumpy quick. We lost our first game in the state tournament and had to fight through the losers bracket and beat Bay City in a Sunday doubleheader in order to move on, and we did. I want to thank Dennis Skirby for filling in for me, as after we lost that first game, it doesn't say much for me as a coach, but I left for Cooperstown, New York to watch Al Kaline being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I remember I was sitting out on a lawn chair with a few of my friends. A lady came out from the hotel and said, "Is one of you Jim Lewis?" And I said, "Yeah, that's me." So I went in, took the phone call, and it was Dennis, and he says, "Coach, we're state champs." And I said, "Wow." And yeah, I was, it was amazing. It was amazing. From there, we traveled to Paducah, Kentucky, where we won 3 games in a row. That may sound easy, but in one of those games, the opposing pitcher threw a no-hitter against us. But Bobby Sullivan walked, stole second, Pat Beatty bunted him to third, and he scored on Augie Tizio's ground out. Jim DeFur threw a 2-hitter for us, and we won 1-0. Then it was on to Morton, Illinois. Oak Park, Illinois mercied us in the first game, 15-1. That's a mountain to climb. Climbing this mountain would not be easy, but this was not your average team. And Dennis, myself, and our business manager, Gus Constantino, knew that. Again, we fought through the losers bracket in 3 days of rain, only to be faced with the daunting task of beating an undefeated Oak Park team in a doubleheader. The same team that beat us 15-1 earlier. But after we won the first game, our momentum, as well as Bobby Sullivan's great game-saving catch, sent us to the Pony League World Series in Davenport, Iowa. We did not fare too well in the World Series. Have to take the good with the bad. Losing to Miami, Florida, and West Covina, California. But we were one of the top 8 teams in the country, and that year, along with the way many people learned where St. Clair Shores was. Many people did not know they had never heard of St. Clair Shores, and they kept saying, "Where's St. Clair Shores?" But when we got on the field, then they understood what it was all about. In summary, most of us lost contact over the years, lived our lives, had other celebrations, and faced other adversities. But it was the summer of 1980 that 15 young men will remember forever. For it was their talent, their toughness, and teamwork that made them Hall of Famers for St. Clair Shores. Thanks, guys.
Go on up on 9 Mile and check it out. It's out in the foyer. Just take a walk around. If the kids are bored, hey, let's go up there and check out the Hall of Fame. And we want to thank everybody involved in this. And I owe an apology to Judge Mark. And I'm going to get his name right. It's Frederick. Am I correct? I got it? Sorry about that. Hey, to wrap up our event today, we are going to keep it right here at the podium and bring it up for our Parks and Recs Director, Henry Bowman. Again, thank you everybody for coming.
Puts a big smile on their face, doesn't it? Really a really cool event. I want to thank
Mr. Mazaway here, for coming in and stepping in, being our MC. Let's give him a big round of applause. He was fantastic. Really good. Just a couple things. We're going to be doing this every 2 years. So the next time we're going to be doing this is in 2022. Guess what's also really big about 2022? It has nothing to do with Trump or Biden or Sanders or any of that. But 2022 will mark 50 years as a Parks and Recreation for the city of St. Clair Shores. So this will most likely kick off that year. So I'm really pumped up about that. Also, want to thank everybody. Please nominate people. You can, at the back of your program shows you how you can nominate. There's people out there that we want to recognize. And please let us know who they are. And finally, just want to say that the bar is still open and is still open until 4 o'clock. So if you want to hang out, have a drink, chit-chat a little bit more, absolutely fantastic people. And yes, Ron, people that were supposed to be giving speech, they were talking a little bit, you could come up, you didn't have to say a few words. It was just Greg Esler that turned it into the presidential address. So, but that's it. So have a great night. Enjoy this weather. Have a couple of beers. We'll see you next time. Lots going on in Parks and Rec. Looking forward to you being involved. Have a good night.